back. You're watching The Daily Report. The U.S. decides 2024. Tonight is what we're discussing. James Stanley, a political analyst, joining us from the U.S., Washington, D.C. Benson Cheserek, business and political analyst from North Carolina, and George Maringa, freelancer in the USA. Earlier on, Benson, George gave us an outline of the swing states, the red and blue states as well. From your projection and from where you sit, where do you see this going?
Okay, so at the moment, actually the former president just wrapped up a rally less than 1 hour ago here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It is one of the most critical for him to win. This state was won by Obama twice. Biden nearly won it in 2020, but it's a very funny state because they elect a Democratic governor and sometimes they can elect the president. Yesterday, the two vice presidents, Walz and J.D. Vance, were here. And they are trying every single thing to win every vote. So, like my friend George had said, if you don't win Pennsylvania and the blue wall, which is Michigan, Wisconsin, and probably Nevada and Arizona, then you are done. But Pennsylvania is extremely important. You can even see the nervousness of most of the politicians here, the commentators in almost every channel. So the other critical important state here is probably Georgia, because Georgia has been traditionally a Republican state, but over the last two elections, Joe Biden was able to flip it to the Democrats. And in an event that he wins Georgia, Kamala Harris wins Georgia, chances are he will win the presidency. Back to North Carolina here, there are only two counties which are very populated, which is the Wake County here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where Donald Trump has left. And we have Mecklenburg County, which is one of the biggest Democratic blocs that actually votes here. If Kamala Harris wins those ones by huge margins, and they have been here multiple times, great chances that she could win this state of North Carolina. And to wrap up your point, I think what is very important here, and this is very important likely to your audience and some of the analysts that you had on the channel there.
Yes.
The U.S. domestic foreign policy and their foreign policy and their domestic policy are two different things. What Kenyans need to understand is if Donald Trump takes in, a lot of the things in the U.S. foreign policy will probably it will not be removed, but it will be paused because he has a take in how can he reduce some of the things from going? How can he maybe cut some of the foreign aid that comes through the U.S. aid? So those are some of the most important. Kamala Harris and the Democrats have been always friendly to many nations. Like my friend George had said, they will probably be friendly to some of the foreign countries. And this is what will inform mostly the engagement between other countries. And that is why largely the U.S. elections are extremely important to any country across the earth. Not only because of the dollar being the base of exchange, but more importantly on how you will engage the U.S. president post the elections.
We did see during the state visit the President, William Ruto, open a store, Vivo Kenya to be specific. What are the prospects looking like, especially for Kenyans who wish to explore economic chances and prospects in the U.S.?
Very important question. Business here is very open. This country is greatly unopened for businesses. The President came and opened some business for one of our Kenyans in Atlanta, I think, Georgia. Yeah. And U.S. has been trying so much as possible to be pro-business. They encourage businesses. In fact, one of the promises, and I think some of my colleagues here can follow, she's promising a $25,000 for any startup businesses. When you start a business here, you're going to be given $25,000 to start a business. So that means they will encourage as local, as young investors as possible to start a business. And to whatever they are doing is to make conducive as much as possible to bring jobs here, to bring any investments here, and to invest locally.
Indeed. James, thank you for staying on the line for us. There is the issue of deportation and the immigration issue, which is really a thorn in the flesh. And either side has said how they will deal with this. Looking at the number of people that could be targeted in this, how do you think the messaging has been made in terms of those who could be affected and what are their options, depending on who takes this presidency?
One of the most important things in the United States, there are so many options when it comes to immigration. There are so many loopholes where you can find an option of your survival in the United States. We have several people who just came to visit And due to the policies that are here in the United States, they are able to work, they are able to earn a living, they're able to go to the school, they're able to graduate from here because they are given what we call the social number. And the best thing with the United States right now is that every immigrant has a right. Either you have a status or you don't have a status. Yes, there is that fear, as I said, for those people who think they don't have a status. But I want to give an assurance to our people, or rather to any immigrant who is listening tonight and who may want to travel over from Kenya to the United States. The most important thing is, as long as you have come through an airport, you're not considered an illegal immigrant. But because of the lack of enough knowledge, tend to fear more because they're not able to dig out who is illegal and who is not illegal. So people think if I don't have a paper, or rather I am here as a visitor, I'm not legal. As long as you are vetted by the custom when you're coming in the United States, you didn't cross over a river, my brother Benson will attest to that, or you did cross over the border by jumping over, you are safe, and I believe you're in a good position. Yeah.
Let's close with you from the U.S. On this issue of, progressive conversations moving forward. You've talked about the red and blue states, the swing states as well. What is the projection, especially from where you sit, in terms of the election and the Electoral College?
When it comes to the U.S. elections, it's kind of different from the elections back home in Kenya. So over here, they use the Electoral College to determine who's going to win. Remember, Donald Trump in 2016 lost the popular vote. Hillary Clinton won the majority vote, but lost the Electoral College. In 2020, Joe Biden won the popular vote and also went on to win the Electoral College. In 2024, it comes down to those few margins, those swing states, which are going to decide who is going to be the next president. Remember, there are only 5 presidents in the history of America who have lost the popular vote and went on to win the Electoral College. Trump being the recent president, actually, who lost in 2016, who lost the popular vote and went on to win the Electoral College. So right now, the states which actually will determine who's going to win the presidency seat is Michigan and Pennsylvania. For the Democrats, they have a big issue in Michigan because, number one, the Arab American voters. There's an issue going on in Gaza right now with Israel. 1 year down the lane, the Biden administration has not yet cooled down the tempers over there between Israel and Hamas. And remember, before Biden stepped down, most Arab American voters voted and committed because they wanted to hear his say when it comes to the issues of the Israel-Hamas war. Right now, Kamala Harris is yet to address that issue effectively. And during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, no Arab American voter was given an opportunity to talk during the convention. Donald Trump has met with them recently, and some of the Muslim leaders have endorsed him. Remember, Michigan in 2020 turned blue in favor of Joe Biden. In 2016, Michigan voted red in favor of Donald Trump, and I remember Trump won the blue wall, changed it from Trump won Michigan, won Pennsylvania, and ended up winning Wisconsin. So right now it comes down to those 3 swing states. Kamala has to win 3 of them. He cannot lose either of it. He has to win those 3 blue states in order for her to become the president. For Trump, he can use Georgia, he can use Nevada, he can use North Carolina, and just swing either Michigan and Pennsylvania, and he's back to the White House. And when it comes to the election, remember, there is also 7 seats, Senate seats which are up for grabs. Right now, the House is 49-44 because there's some 7 seats among the Democrats where they'll be going for elections. So, in order, even if, let's say, Kamala wins and she doesn't have the majority in the House, she'll not have some of the powers to pass some of the policies. And if Trump wins and he doesn't have the majority in the House, then that means he won't have power to pass whatever he wants to do, because when it comes to the issue of immigration, Trump has said he wants to deport 1 million, immigrants, illegal immigrants to the U.S. Let's remember, the U.S. president who deported most immigrants during his tenure was Barack Obama. That's why he was known as chief deporter. He deported a lot of illegal immigrants. Trump, whatever he's saying regarding the deportation of illegal immigrants won't happen if he doesn't have the support of the Senate. So these 7 seats which are up for grabs in the Senate, the Republicans, the Democrats, are fighting for those seats, because whoever wins needs to have majority in the Senate. Because remember also the issue of the Supreme Court. The judges over there, most of them are Republicans, and we have 3 Democrats. So whoever wins needs to have the majority in the House and in the Senate for him or her to pass some of the policies they want. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you so much. George Maringa, freelancer and graduate student, joining us from the Washington, D.C., outside the White House. Thank you, George. As well as Benson Cheserek, business and political analyst, joining us from North Carolina. And James Stanley, joining us also from Washington, D.C. Thank you, gentlemen, joining us from the States. Here in studio, I still have Mark Bichachi and Stephen Ndegwa. Mark, looking at how this campaign has gone, what are some of the, perhaps, even as you pick from the other point we had put on hold, what are some of the key lessons that, or pointers that perhaps Africa is yet to, copy and notice in as much as, elections and campaigns are managed?
Wow, that's quite a powerful question. I was talking to a friend of mine in the States, and I was telling them that now the United States knows how to have a tribal election because they have made it about communities. They have made it about religious bias, and by and large, they've forgotten issues, for example, of the economy. It has taken quite a backseat in terms of what is directly emotive. It's become us versus them. The 2 candidates hardly agree on anything. If you ask them the color of the sky, they will tell you it's either red or blue. And therefore, there's quite a difference. But at the same time, the decorum with which the United States has carried this election. We've seen the Republicans apologizing for calling Puerto Rico a garbage heap and things like that. So these are things that make their politics a bit more sanitary than what Kenya is. But also, this is the second time we are seeing the power of a politician in casting aspersions in an electoral system. Trump has already started singing that if he loses, it will be because it has been rigged. And you've seen for the first time in a very long time that the American people are actually discussing about whether the elections are safe, secure, and reliable. You might think that they have Chebukati there as well, and Raila Odinga and the rest of that ilk. But at the same time, you also have seen some very sad statements, statements that usually would pass in Kenya in previous times when you say that certain groups of people eat cats and dogs. It is lowering the value of a people. We know what people have used politically in this country before, talking about people's diets, about animals with necks and what have you. So definitely it's a mixed bag of things. But back to Kenya, and one of the things that I think we must also recognize is the non-NATO, and this is back to the point that was being made before, the non-NATO ally is not just tokenism. There's quite an amount of military equipment that Kenya has received, but not only that, there's an amount of a certain level and certain classes of ammunitions that Kenya can now access from the United States. Now, this may seem like a small thing, but let's remember that Kenya is a country that is surrounded by conflict, from Congo to Burundi to South Sudan to Sudan itself to Ethiopia to Somalia. So Kenya's ability to project military power and to project its alliances across the world is also quite critical, not only in the actual fight, because we don't expect Kenya to go into a conflict, but also as a deterrent that those who are our enemies, including such terror organizations as Al-Shabaab, will think twice when we have guided precision missiles, and we don't need to send our boys there to deal with them. So there is certain military uses for this non-NATO ally. But for me, in a nutshell, the American election for once has taught us that just being Western does not necessarily make you better than us. And they can make as irresponsible and frankly foolish statements as some of our politicians make. And that also gives us as an opportunity as Africans to project our intellect, to project our ideas, and actually help them to know that elections can be free and fair. And if you disagree, you don't storm the Capitol, you go to the Supreme Court and you deal with it the way it's supposed to be done. So it's a mixed bag, really.
Stephen, the ties between Kenya and the US, of course, they've been there for a while. These are policies that, each presidency comes and builds upon. Of what importance should Kenya then, whoever comes in, ensure that whatever has been agreed upon in the past still continues, whereas its policy, it's on paper, just to ensure that even as whoever comes in with their policies, whatever was agreed upon still stands?
I think that's a tough one to do because, as I said, beggars cannot be choosers. So we cannot go and start telling the US, you remember, you promised this, you promised that. We are beholden to their magnanimity. And if they decide, if they tell you, wait, just as it has happened, you look at the precedents that they have set, we have no clout to pull strings and tell the US, now we are calling this, can you meet this side of the bargain, or we are going to do one or two things outside it, okay? So you can see even now, for example, the CIA chiefs coming around and the M16 guys coming around. We do not have the power to withstand their pressure, okay? And in fact, we are even, let me just be honest, we are children when compared to them, okay? It's a parent-children relationship, okay? Because we cannot stand up to them, and that is because of the way we are wired in this country, okay? I don't believe we can do like the way they have said the Botswana president has said, told the US bases you need to pack up, or the Nigeria guy who said you also need to pack up, because we derive a lot of, not as a country really, but I think there's a lot of personal interests between people in government and whatever comes from the US. But if we looked at ourselves as a country, I think we will start calling out some of the false promises that we have got, okay? It's someone who was telling me, for example, that when it comes to these peacekeeping forces, you find Kenya being sent to Haiti, Somali, and so forth. But there's some action going on in the DRC, where you have a lot of, that is where there's minerals, serious minerals, okay? That is where now you find Belgium soldiers, French soldiers, they bring Western soldiers to that place because there's a lot of business going there that is done by the West that they need to go and protect. So for me, I think we in Kenya need to write our own script, first of all, and Africa in general. Can we write our own script and say, we better be poor but have dignity, you see? But the problem, as I said again, is greed. Our leaders, most of those who negotiate some of these things, they don't do it for the country. They will do it because they think that they can get contracts to do this or that. They can get visas to go outside to the US when they want and so forth, for vested interests. But if we looked at ourselves as a country, I think we have not benefited that immensely from having a US relation, but the perception, the US, of course, is built on perception, okay? It's Coca-Cola, so Coca-Cola, is just colored water, for example, and all that, but it's one of the biggest brands in the world. So it is that kind of thing, the hype that is there is a lot, but when you go on the ground, as they say in Swahili, kwa ground is different, you see. So I think we need to come up with our own foreign policy, and then we see where we can meet halfway with these guys. And if they cannot be able to deliver for us real life-changing, transformative kind of action, then I think there's no need. We would rather just continue struggling and, and grow organically rather than trying to import the American dream, Yeah.
What precedences will be set in this election? For whoever takes?
Well, if Kamala Harris takes it, then a very big glass ceiling will have been broken for the women of the world. I personally identify as Democrat, and therefore I would love it to see Kamala Harris win. It would be very good for the women of the world. It would be very good for the rights of women in the United States. It will be good generally. If Donald Trump wins, then the precedent is that the world order as we know it is going to change. Now, for me, that's not a bad thing. Because I, like my brother here, agree that the United States hegemonic control on the world is not fair, because it's not control that is based on an equal footing. It is control that is heavily skewed towards the United States. And therefore, when the United States make mistakes, you know, sometimes when the elephants fight, the grass that is not under their feet gets to grow somewhere else. And those are the opportunities that will be there. Trump will then, of course, be competing with Biden at some point of being the oldest president that the United States has seen. But he represents a significant change in terms of world policy, in terms of things like NATO, in terms of how different rights of different groups have gone. All of those things will significantly change if Trump gets into power. And one of the things that is going to be very interesting to watch is if he actually does put his plan 2025 into action. I think it's going to be amazing to see him basically roll out a shareholder kind of thing the way Rigiji did. Yeah, but because that's a plan basically, that they're shareholders and those are the people who should hold positions and things like that. So it's going to be interesting for the world to watch. Now, for Africa, and I say this specifically for Kenya, and I have skewed very heavily in terms of our diplomacy and our importance in the region and things like that. I think for Kenya, when you're dealing with a giant like the United States, you need to be cunning. Right? You need to be the rabbit in the grass. You need to be, you need to be, as Jesus said, as gentle as a dove, but as cunning as a serpent when it comes to this. And that is what is required. Kenya might not have the privilege that Botswana has, because Botswana is a very comfortable country. It's per capita one of the richest countries in Africa, and it can per capita compete with some countries even in Europe. So it has the benefit of telling the United States, listen, we produce 100,000 diamonds a day, so you can pack up your bags and go. Kenya does not have such privilege. So our diplomacy has to be more crafty, more clever, more and whatever their magnanimity is shown to us, Kenya needs to be clever enough to know how do you use that particular stage, that particular status to get your little pound of flesh.
Yeah, I think I can pick up something he talked about in the presidency. Yeah?
Yes.
I think the fact that it might be time now for the US to elect a woman president. I remember that I may have to swallow my own words, because after Hillary was not elected, then I was always questioning, why does America sell this to other countries? You know, they can come and tell us, oh, women power, blah, 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 but they do not practice what they preach. So if Kamala picks it now, then it will show some, but you can see, of course, she will pick it by default, okay? It's not that she has risen through, because she just came up from, with Biden, okay? And so she has that benefit, and it was like predicted that that is how a woman president would come, that she would be deputy, and then the person who is the incumbent might not be able to stand again, either through death or something, and then so there is that precedence that could be set. But what I would like to say is that we need to look at the bigger picture. Apart from the politics in America, America is not what most people perceive here. And I think if you look at social media, it will tell you what kind of society America now is. It's a society in chaos, okay? First of all, you have to learn to know that America is now it's a post-truth society, if you know what I mean by post-truth, yeah? That things are happening that are just surreal. You know, they are breaking down every rule in the book, whether it is religion, whether it is science. They're trying to recreate a world, another world. And so you find that there's a lot of confusion, social. Okay, my sister has been in the US for at least 2 decades. And she was saying that they're also praying that there's no violence after the election. I mean, as he said, you don't expect to hear that in America, okay? That they're fearing that there could be violence, especially because the elections will be too close to call, okay? So there's a lot of fear that Trump, you know what he did last time, yeah? And so, yes, we pray for that. Okay. When it comes to immigrants, of course, Trump saying that they're eating dogs and everything is because it is perceived that the Democrats are the ones who are letting in the immigrants so that they can use them as the next, years to come, they'll be used as voting fodder, okay, for the Democrats and all that. So I think yes, America will decide, but the bigger picture, I think we need to start looking inward, okay? We need to start looking at ourselves and saying, what is it that we can offer rather than what can other people offer us, so that we are now starting to bargain, because you can see small countries, and I've been here before and I've said Israel, you can see it holds the US by some, part of the body that you may not want to mention there.
All right.
Why, yes.
Let's indeed, and what are we to end up the conversation? Yes. Mark Bichachi, thank you for joining us. An analyst and communication strategist. Stephen Ndegwa, international relations expert. And earlier on we had George Maringa from the US, a freelancer and graduate student. Benson Cheserek, a business and political analyst, as well as James Stanley, a political analyst. That's where we wind up the conversation tonight. My name is George Maringa. On sign language interpretation has been Catherine Simalawi. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another.